Cool.
Kia ora, yes, and welcome to the Active Studio Stadium and now Forest. Yes, we welcome Phil Boniface and Al Fraser with a really unique musical speaking, I guess you'd call it a speaking. We also welcome to the room a number of ancestors in Taonga Pūoro, which leads me to a double bass and Taonga Pūoro. How did this come about?
Wow. Yeah, well, Phil and I have known each other for probably about the last 20 years. And Phil's moved back from Canada a few years ago. And he was around for lunch one day and he said, shall we try some music with Taonga Pūoro and double bass?
Which is something that Phil has done a lot over the years. You know, you would probably be the world's leading exponent in double bass with Taonga Pūoro. As such, by virtue of practice.
Well, I guess the project started with one of the big influences of Paul Dine for sure. The album that he did in 2011, Hikoi with Richard Nunns, was a huge influence on what I do and with playing with Alistair. And I think that a lot of the stuff started with our jams and improvs. Al?
Yeah, we composed our pieces through improvising, and then we've come at it from our sort of jazz point of view of having a conversation between the two worlds and seeing what fits. So sometimes it's a feel, sometimes it's the notes. So we tried out, when we were composing, we tried out my instruments, and then Phil would get into the feel and then go away and sort of really work on his parts, then come back and we'd see how that was working. And that's gone pretty well. We released an album through Rattle Records in March, which we're really proud of. And we're getting some attention now. We've had a couple of really positive reviews from abroad and New Zealand. Thanks to Rattle for supporting us.
Yeah, and it's very much a dialogue. It's finding ways of speaking with the instruments, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, when we were originally getting things together, we spent a long time on each different instrument as well, and trying to create a concept around each different one, and being aware of what it's capable of, as well as pushing on what it can actually do as well.
Yeah,
and trying to find a lot of common ground between us.
And finding the voices of the instruments as well, because that's the important thing. Taonga Pūoro, up until recently, we did not know what they sounded like, and we don't know what the Taonga Pūoro sounded like 300 years ago.
No, and we never will in some ways, because now we're 300 years later. So the revival's been going about 30, 40 years, led by the Haumanu group and formal group of practitioners, led by Matua Richard Nunns and Matua Hirni Melbourne and Matua Brian Flintoff. And now we've got a new generation of players come through. And so we're still in the revival mode. There are still variations of instruments turning up. And maybe in some ways it's almost limitless what materials we can experiment with any given instrument. So that's what makes the art form, I think, beautiful, because there's always something to explore. So it's always keeps my attention, But we're certainly at a really good point now.
Yeah. I think we should hear some music.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the first of the ZeroHour live duets. Thank you to the ZeroHour for facilitating this. Al Fraser and Phil Boniface, take it away. Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. So you are listening to Al Fraser and Phil Boniface. Yes, a meeting of double bass and Taonga Pūoro. Now, your instruments have played for actual ancestors. I'm thinking about the Cook collection that you played for at the Cambridge Museum.
I played the collection there.
You played the collection. So you actually got to touch 300-year-old. Wow.
Possibly older.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was part of Winston Churchill grant, a study grant from the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust. And I went around 8 museums in the UK and looked at their collections, studied them, took photos, measured them. And about 3 or 4 of the museums there let me play their collections, which I find, because I make my own instruments, so I find that I learn quite a lot from playing them. But of course everyone who plays Taonga Pūoro sounds different, so it's not so much that that's the voice of the instrument, but it is a voice of the instruments when, say, I play them or anyone plays them. So that was kind of a follow-on from a year previously. I'd been living in the UK just for a few months, and I went to the Cambridge collection, and they were very much down for me playing their collection. So that sort of kick started. Although actually previous to that, I played the O'Kane's Bay Māori and Colonial Museum collection down at O'Kane's Bay on the Banks Peninsula. So I've kind of I've been doing that for a little bit now, playing at museum collections.
Very forward thinking that they allow these objects not to be dead as such.
Yes.
Yeah.
The mana, as well as the object, it lies in its voice. Was the intention of the taonga that it would be played. Yeah, and it is forward thinking. Cambridge were, I did ask them, not too worried, and the curator there said, look, we'll leave them out overnight. The moisture will be gone. Shouldn't be a problem. Of course, there are a few sort of health and safety problems because in Victorian times, a lot of museum items were treated in baths of arsenic and cyanide to preserve them, to stop bugs eating them. But so far, so good.
It was worth the risk.
Oh, mate, they're a joy to play, and it really makes me realise that we're really good. We've done really well, all the recreating, but some of the oldies are really the best instruments I've played. Some of the old taonga are the best ones around.
Yeah. One of the other things you've done, and you played a bird bone before that I'm guessing did come from the Chatham Islands. Yeah,
with its name rekohu. Yeah, so I've named this instrument rekohu, and my friend Arapeta found it on the beach and gave it to me, and quite a long time ago, quite a few years ago. Yeah, so I made a kōowo that's sort of based roughly on one that says it's from the Chathams, provenance is from the Chathams, it's in the Canterbury Museum. Yeah.
Because the Moriori, their culture is quite different from Māori culture. Just need to look at their tree carvings to see that they were either an earlier Pacific migration or a completely different culture.
That's right. Yeah, I'm actually, coincidentally, I'm part of a study with Otago University. So Otago University got a Marsden grant to look at Moriori musical instruments. So I'm part of the team of 5 people. I've been to the Chathams a couple of times and stayed at Kōpinga Marae over there. Beautiful. And so we're currently exploring what could have been, because there isn't much material culture left. They suffered a genocide in the 1830s, and they've been reviving their culture since the 1980s. And so part of that is their language, bringing their language back. And it looks like they shared about 70% of their language with Māori, so 30% was quite different.
Quite distinct.
Very distinct, yeah.
Yeah, and once again, the sounds of the Taonga Pūoro are essentially lost.
Yeah. So we're looking at stories, any stories to do with sound, and then Jen Catamol from Otago got me on board because I did an artist residency on Rakiura where I explored the landscape and did experimental instruments. So that's what we're doing too over on Rekohu. So very privileged to be involved with that.
Yeah, because it is music that is designed for the landscape. It's music that reflects the landscape, the sound of birds. So you'd imagine that the Chatham's landscape, the birds there are quite different.
And they were right into bird sculpture. Like there's a lot of their artwork that represents birds. So yeah, birds are a touchstone, and in many things Te Ao Māori, you know, the natural world is a touchstone. Yeah.
So does Rekohu come through in your collaboration with Phil?
I think of places when I'm playing, and I definitely do think of Rekohu now that I've been there.
Yeah, I think so. Trying to get, I think trying to get to the essence of some of the instruments as well. I think it's a constant source of inspiration. And sometimes I think in the beginning I was really quite intimidated by a lot of them because I wasn't really too sure. I mean, Alistair's taught me so much about all of the instruments, so I'm continuing to learn, and we're continuing to compose over new ones. But I think it has been a real challenge as well in a lot of ways to try and get to, to get a vibe happening on different instruments as well, and we've been kind of constantly exploring. I think we've been quite lucky recently because we've done about 9 gigs now, and so we're really starting to develop these ideas that we initially started with and extend them in sort of that trust of playing as well. I think that sort of ties into our background as jazz musicians as well.
Really are you finding you're regarding the double bass in a different way as well and looking at it in a different way?
I definitely think so. Like I'm trying to extend myself a lot on different instruments. I'm really find myself that I'm really trying to listen to what's going on and with what I'm working with each different instrument as well, and to be sensitive of that, of also like bringing out the sound of the taonga as well. I think that's a huge thing for me, is that I'm still playing that supportive role of what traditionally the bass does, to try and bring out the sound of each instrument as much as I can. So absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well, I think we need to hear some more.
We do, yeah.
Yes, you have been listening to Alistair Fraser and Phil Boniface. They have an album out on Rattle Pūoro, which, yes, you can actually get it on Bandcamp. Rattle seems to be inhabiting Bandcamp at the moment. Anyway, this Live to Air has been brought to you by Neil and the good people at the ZeroHour. You can hear them every Sunday night from 11 o'clock until 1 o'clock in the morning, following Africa is Not a Country. Haha. Thank you very much. Yes, Phil Boniface and Al Fraser. Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Cheers, Miles.